Pavel Bulowski, 32 years old. Originally from Prague, the Czech Republic, Pavel lives in Bali, Indonesia, and travels to Singapore, Korea, Australia, and recently also to New Zealand to meet local companies and sell them a sophisticated IT product. His company, Keboola, is currently looking for new sales talent from Prague and all over the world. What is his vision, and what exactly does this international sales opportunity include and require is something we are going to talk about right now. Hi, Pavel. How are you?
Hello. I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good too. So where in the world did we catch you?
I'm right now in Auckland, New Zealand, where I've spent a little bit of time on my own over the Christmas and New Year's. And right now I'm here in Auckland, which is the sort of a business capital of the country. And I have a few meetings trying to do a little bit of an exploration of the market to see where it is, and it's quite interesting. So right now, New Zealand, next week, Sydney.
So you're saying it's going pretty good. Can you tell us like a sneak peek? What were you doing actually?
Well, I'm meeting a few prospective clients, which my colleagues have sort of contacted, and a few leads that they generated for me. So I'm kind of seeing a few possible partners and customers. It's an interesting market. It's not really what I expected. It's a little bit, how isolated New Zealand is. The technology here is a little bit behind. I'd say quite a few years, even behind Australia, which is quite surprising. But that's what it is.
Okay, cool. I gave you an intro. Basically, it would be really cool right now if you could give us a little bit of background about yourself. I mean, tell me, how does a guy from a small Czech startup end up leading an IT company branch in Asia and actually Southeast Asia and Pacific? I would like to know really.
Right. So yeah, my sales journey is a bit longer than that. I've started with my with various sales roles in hospitality, where I was working with an international hotel chain back in Prague, which was interesting because I started doing that in the sort of in the dawn of the financial crisis in 2008, which was really interesting times, because corporate travel and conferences was the first thing a lot of companies were cutting. So there was an interesting experience. From there, I went through traditional online media. I've also spent time, and I kind of was fortunate enough to work with a sort of a Groupon-like company, which ended up being a leader of the markets in Eastern Europe, which is really, really interesting, because that was a market that exploded within 1 year, and that was really quick learning curve. So I've liked that experience a lot, and I'm still kind of looking back at it. And from there, I went to Social Bakers, which is today quite a large company. And I've joined when we were really, really young and small. There was no formal sales process back then. And it's a sort of a standard in social media measurement these days. And I've helped to develop the market in Asia the same way I'm doing in Keboola. So I was the first person in the market, started traveling there really, really shortly after I've joined the company. And we were doing so well that in a few months, we started planning opening an office, and right now I think there's a team of about 12 people in Singapore and about 4 in Australia, which ended up going really well. And I've left the company after nearly 4 years there to start with Keboola, which was kind of a grassroots business and quite an interesting opportunity for me personally.
Basically, this gave you like business confidence to actually go into IT and basically move back to Asian markets and start from there? Or, I mean, how did you end up in Keboola anyway?
Right. So I could say that Keboola is in a similar space. It's a technology, it's a software as a service technology out of Czech Republic, and in Czech Republic the market is really, really small. So it's not kind of hard to notice all the important players and the sort of the movers of the market. And we got to talk to Keboola through a couple of my connections on one project we were possibly going to do together with Social Bakers, which didn't end up going through, but we were so intrigued by the the technology and the proposition that we kind of ended up talking to them on a little bit separate way, and how, what their plans are. And we really like that it's an independent company, that it's not heavily invested, and therefore kind of has a slightly different mentality and sort of life goals, which resonated with me a lot. And the opportunity of kind of opening up the office on sort of on our own time with my business partner was really interesting at the time, and I think it was a really good decision.
Perfect. We will get to that a little bit later. I think now would be a really good time. I mean, we're talking technology, IT product. Now it would be really good time if you explain a little bit what Keboola actually does.
Right. So 2 years later, I'm still trying to learn it myself, because I don't have an IT background, and this is really technical product. So that also obviously also reflects in what kind of people we are looking for into the team. So Keboola, in a nutshell, is a software developer. We built back in Prague and through distributed team in Czech Republic. We built a ETL, which is an extraction transformation load acronym, which it essentially is a data integration and preparation platform for analysis. So whenever a business or company looks at their performance dashboards, whether this is in sales, marketing, or logistics, or any other field, really, they kind of see nice graphs, right? But our job essentially, and what Keboola does really well and enables a lot of people to do quite easily and fast, is to prepare the data to put them into any kind of visualization tool, which is typically tricky because data is not consolidated, lives in different systems, different departments own it, and this becomes really tricky. Also with that, so this is obviously an obvious problem we are solving, and it's really obvious. But what's tricky about it is that Keboola is a platform, right? So it doesn't really have one particular use case. I mean, we speaking for the sort of the Asian business unit, we do have a lot of use cases in digital marketing, and I suppose this is because that's where we are sort of. This kind of follows up on our experience with social bakers and the sort of the contact network that we have built and that we are kind of focusing on. But there are a lot of different use cases around Keboola, and it's really difficult to market something that's kind of an open platform where you can almost throw anything at it and it will work with it. But it's not one particular thing. Like with my previous company with social bakers, it was really easy to say that it's a social measurement tool, and that's kind of the end of the story. Here it can be healthcare analytics preparation, it can be logistics, it can be digital marketing. Really depends on what type of data you want to work with, right? And also the users are really technical, so we are typically talking to IT or sort of data departments if companies already start having those. And also what's quite tricky is that in Asia, I suppose the market is a little bit behind in terms of adoption and maturity. If you compare it with Europe, and especially if you compare it with the US, where obviously all the technology booms really quickly, and even very large companies adopt it. So Asian markets are a little bit more conservative when it comes to it, and Keboola is a cloud technology, so there are a lot of obstacles. But the benefit of what we do is really great. So it's a tricky environment to be in.
I guess that's what keeps you interested, because it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's really challenging, and I think any salesperson kind of that doesn't really like it easy and given to them. This is what you're going to run in new market, right? You always have a choice of kind of joining in terms of technology. You have a choice of joining a company, which would be a challenger to existing. But we are literally creating a space for ourselves, which it's much more difficult to communicate. And if you sell a CRM tool, well, it's really easy to come up with proposition that you are selling it 50% cheaper, and there are XYZ more features, right? So that's not what we do. We don't really replace a technology. We kind of create a new space for ourselves, and it's a little bit difficult to get into people's minds in terms of kind of like traditional mindsets, really. So yeah, it is challenging.
Going back actually to like Keboola story. So you are on Asian market for more than a year, is it?
Yeah, it's nearly 2 years now. Yeah. Actually, it is 2 years.
It is 2 years. Okay, great. Yeah. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
So I would like to know, like, because you said you're like ever innovating? I mean, there's obviously a lot of like space to go to innovate. So I'd like to know, like, where does Keboola stand as for right now, and what is your vision basically?
So we've essentially spent sort of the first year and a half, and when I say 2 years, it's really a year and a half when we were kind of operational. I think we spent the first year figuring out kind of how do we position ourselves, who we are, where do we go, and what we do. Right? It's also we are sort of self-funded, and it's a bootstrap company as far as the sort of a main company back in Prague goes as well. So you're looking at very, very organic growth. It's not an accelerated where you take VC money and all of a sudden you have $1 million to hire a large sales team and they will kind of have to make the cut in a few months or not. So this is a very different environment, and we are essentially literally we have a very iterative approach, which is kind of being an IT company, it's common sense, so that we apply the same thing to sales approach as well, that we just literally test things, and if something works we stick to it, if not we will keep doing different stuff. And we have to be really cost effective, so we don't really do much of a sort of a performance marketing, which something that you kind of heard a long sales pitch, right? So it's really difficult to communicate this type of thing. So to imagine trying to set up a AdWords banner for something like this, it's not really possible. It's not really effective. So what we are doing is we are kind of focusing on a few things in terms of marketing and sales and lead generation. I do see those two things very much connected. I don't consider them being two separate things. So marketing and sales for me are two things, and is one thing, and I do oversee the whole piece of this operation. What we focus on is kind of user interaction. So this is a lot. There's in terms of data analytics and data science, there's a lot of community. There's very, very strong knit community around this, either online or offline in the respective markets and cities where we operate. So what we try to do is we try to tap into local events and go speak at local meetups. We organize our own. We've organized our hackathons. We have a little bit of an education, sort of you could call it probably CSR if you were in corporation activity, where we do follow up on and sort of movement that started out of Czech Republic by a group called Czechitas, which is Data Girls, which is essentially a free workshops for people or women specifically, kind of to promote the diversity in this market, to kind of educate them and kind of show them the opportunities in data analytics, because we believe that this diversity is really important. We see it in our own team when you see a female analyst and how they kind of can sometimes put really interesting spin on what a male typically group of analysts would see, and show them, kind of point out things that these guys would not. So it's really interesting, and we really believe this is an important piece. And obviously, as a kind of a holistic effect, what it does is kind of puts our name out there in the market. People start noticing us, and if we kind of let them play with hands-on the tools that we have and let them compare it with what they have and what they use, it's kind of the best soft approach to the market. But outside of this, obviously, we do have kind of more traditional structured approach where we do contact people through LinkedIn and social networks, almost kind of circling back to traditional cold calling, because we see that in some situations it can work, and it's still a good vehicle. I didn't completely give up on that yet. So there are a few things that we do in terms of sales and sales and marketing, but I do think our approach generally is kind of less pushy, less hard sell, and it's more relationship making, building, because what we do is essentially provide a core functionality for a business, and it's not something that people will let you do for them unless they have a good relationship with you, because this is very strategic for each company, kind of the areas we touch, data.
So right now you're looking for someone that would operate on Asian market, right? So I'd like to know what exactly would this person do? I mean, could you give us more details?
Right. So this is quite interesting. opportunity I think that we have. And one of the reasons is that we are the way we operate as a team is we are completely distributed. So when you see all my Instagram posts, you see that I use very often hashtag digital nomad, which is essentially what I am, because I travel half the time and I'm always on the road somewhere battling with a poor internet connection typically. So that's what we are that's what our proposition is. So we do think that this sort of a freedom is one of the biggest value prop that we offer as a company, and with that obviously sort of come a huge responsibility and kind of a high expectation level on communication and sort of self-motivation and self-direction, because you can't really, it's not an environment where I'm standing in the office door 5 to 9 and counting people who came in on time, because that's just not how we operate. We are not really interested in working with people who need this type of guidance and require this type of attention. It's really we're kind of looking at ourselves as more of a cooperative, really, in terms of how we are structured, and it's really flat company as well. So our team is right now 6 people, and we are looking at splitting that between technical. So we have people who are more on the sort of implementation and architecture design of the solutions for clients side, and people who are on a business development side and kind of operations. So what I'm looking for is essentially a business development person. I'm looking for quite junior role, and I'm honestly very specifically looking more for talent than for skill, for like proven sales skills. We are looking for someone who will help us shape the sales process. As I said, we are constantly iterating that, and where we've arrived after 1.5 years, I don't think that's a final destination. I think we need to keep doing what we've done in the first in the first year and a half, and that means constantly changing the ways we operate until we find an ideal model and try to stick with it as long as it works. So a little bit of a lead generation, a little bit of a cold calling, definitely. So I'm looking for someone who is obviously proficient in English, who doesn't have a problem understanding heavy accents, because we deal with a lot of other Asian countries. So Singapore, obviously, Hong Kong, Korea. So that can be language-wise, they can be challenging, especially on phone sometimes. And looking for someone who will help us kind of to define markets. So kind of do a little bit of research work as well. It's ideally someone who kind of has more will to do, not necessarily has 10 years of experience. I'm not really looking for enterprise salesperson as is. I'm definitely looking for someone who I can grow into this role really quickly. So we're more looking for a really talented human being who kind of has an inclination to sales rather than a proven corporate 6 titles, 10 years, 8 companies type of enterprise salesperson.
Because that doesn't say anything about his or her skills. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, when I've talked about it, obviously, around with my colleagues, and when we've done a few interviews, and it's when you're hiring someone for sales, it's I believe that you're first hiring a human being, then you're hiring a salesperson. So that has to come first. And we are so small team for now that this is very. Even though I'm looking for a junior role, it's still very sort of integral part of the team. And it's I'm looking for someone who in the same time is up to the challenge of helping to design the sales process as it should be, not necessarily someone who expects all the direction from A to Z, even though there will obviously be a lot of direct cooperation with me, and there's a lot of experience they could draw on, but it's more about that talent rather than really experience on a paper, because I don't really believe in that meaning a lot. So in terms of sort of the hard skills, so definitely, well, I mean, it's back to soft skills again, but it's a communication that we're interested in on paper, on phone as well, kind of a will to do things a little bit differently. Not a person who should not really be afraid to pick up a phone and call someone they never talked to before and do it multiple times. Someone who is used to rejection, or competition and challenge. So an athlete would be good. I do believe that athletes make a really good salespeople in some way. And most importantly, and this is absolutely crucial to kind of who we are looking for is we are looking for someone who has a little bit of an overlap into technology. Now, I know, as a matter of fact, that it's really difficult to get to get hands on people who have a mix of sales and sort of a computer systems or information technology. Just doesn't really, those crossbreeds don't really exist. But I'm definitely looking for someone who is interested in technology and understands cloud, understands data analytics a little bit, and kind of has at least an inclination to learn about this, because that's how I got into it, and I do believe it's doable. It's just you really have to kind of have the motivation to do that, and this sort of a technical background is really important. So as someone who done a bit of a consulting on IT front and kind of has those communication skills on the other hand side, is kind of a facing customer, that would be really good background I can think of.
And also, as you're saying, he or she has to have inclination. So it means this person is obviously going to grow like under your leadership, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. So look, we are right now a company that's at the growth stage, if you will want to use the startup lingo. So we are looking for growing a team and actually building a team, not necessarily growing a team, but building one. So this is someone that I'm looking for. I'm not looking to. I've experienced this before. Like you hire great people for business development, and then you kind of abuse them and use them and let them stay in that role as long as they last, because that that hits your target. So I don't really want to do that. I would rather have someone who I can grow into what I am doing, and rather fast. But because of how technical this environment is, I'm not hiring that sort of mature person straight away, because I know that they don't really exist. So I would rather grow and groom someone from very early sort of stage in their career into where I am, and kind of do a bypass of a lot of things that I didn't have to go through, and do that really quickly. But kind of the person would have to grow there, and there is absolutely an opportunity to be very independent, kind of end-to-end salesperson. But first, I kind of want that to go through the him or her. I want them to go through a kind of a very traditional business development rigor.
For me, this goes down to a question. Actually, where is this person going to work from? I mean, do they have to live with you in Bali? Do they? I mean, where are they going to work from?
So my first and quick answer to that is I don't care, and I think that's one of the benefits. So look, we have people who live in Bali, we have people who live in Czech Republic, in Czech Republic. We have people who are kind of between Bali and Brno. We have people in Singapore. So it's really, we don't care, and I think this is one of the advantages. And we don't really dictate the hours. The markets do, but we don't. So we have a kind of set rules on communication that where we all know where we are not available or not. But if this is someone who kind of has an inclination to travel, want to kind of explore Asia a little bit, and be a few months in Thailand, a few months in Indonesia, this is absolutely perfect role. But obviously there has to be that it has to be underlined by this sort of a self-discipline and self-control, and being able to get up from your tropical lush villa somewhere in Bali and go to work at 9, because that's how you do it. It's still work day, right? So it's we would say it's a location independent, if you wanted more proper name for it. We don't really have an office. We are all virtual. We do sort of try our best to see each other at least once a year, and I do have colleagues which I obviously interact with in person a lot more. And my other business partner is based in Singapore, which is sort of very strategic for us, because that way we can really meet and see clients and prospects on a daily basis if we need to, without me being there all the time. And I kind of look myself personally after more of the peripheral markets we are trying to develop, like Australia or Hong Kong.
I have one last question. I mean, two last questions actually. I would like to know, for me it sounds very dreamy. So I can work, like if I work for you, I can work from Bali. I imagine I can close deals in like big skyscraper in Singapore or something. So it all sounds very dreamy. So tell me, what are actually the real like challenges? Like, what are the challenges the person is going to face on a daily basis?
Well, the challenges are more the infrastructure and the culture, I would say. So, and also kind of the sort of the status quo of where we are as a company. So, starting with the last point. So, I think I mentioned this before already a little bit, but we do sort of bring to market very new product, and it kind of cuts through traditional IT architecture, and like sometimes people really don't want to understand it, and this is really difficult. So it's not necessarily a replacement and competitive market in terms of there are competitors who do what we do very well. It's actually very few people who do what we do, but it's also kind of very awkwardly positioned sort of piece of market where no one really understands how it's defined. So those things are definitely difficult from a communication perspective, and that's why sort of I was kind of so emphasizing the IT experience, because you need to have kind of holistic understanding of how this market works. So this is really, really important. Cultural second. So I've seen we are trying to hire from Czech Republic. Obviously, that's why we are kind of having this conversation, and why we've recorded this interview in our sort of native language as well before. But why we are trying to do that is because all of our teammates right now until this point are Czech. So we still maintain Czech as a sort of our primary language in the company, and I'm not really trying to change that, because I think it's easier coming from the sort of the holding company back in Prague. So we see that this is this will help us kind of blend in the culture. On the other side, culture meant as if the markets that we are going after, so they are really, really different. So you have Australia, which is kind of like a white man's country. You have Singapore, which is a absolutely amazing cultural mix, where you have anything from a sort of a Chinese to Indian to Malay cultures, and they are very, very different. You have Indonesia, where we also have a few customers, which is very, very different to everything else. In Asia, you have kind of the Northern Asia, Hong Kong, which is very fast-paced, very, very Chinese-dominated market. You have Korea, which is completely isolated, completely separated, and it's kind of that one of those sort of key soft skills for this role, I think, is an empathy, really, because you have to kind of tune into these people, into these cultures, to be able to understand them and work with them. In Indonesia, the business isn't done really on a first few meetings. It takes time to build relationships. You need to learn about the other person's family and their personal life before you even they even allow you to discuss business. So that's something that's the person that we are looking for to join our team needs to be sort of aware of, and not trying to push them kind of the other way. I've seen in my experience in Asia quite a few ANGMO, what they call managers from typically US, UK, who come in and as the sort of the white guy, they try to kind of make everyone do it the way they are used to it from their home countries, and they will spectacularly fail most of the time, because it just people are not really waiting for that. It's you have to adapt yourself to the markets, not trying to make the markets adapt to you. That's the sort of a rule of the thumb here. So that's kind of cultural sensitivity that we have, but that on the other side provides a beautiful benefits, that you really get to talk to people from different cultures. And for someone who is interested in sort of a little bit of a world and other people, other cultures as well, this is an incredible benefit. And I've I've enjoyed it to fullest myself in the last 6 years. So that's been really great, and I think that's both an opportunity and concern in the same time. So those are the things that I would kind of say being aware of. And then as a salesperson, the biggest challenge there is to be told no. And I think this is something that everyone is battling with, and you'll be told no a lot here. So, but when someone says yes, and you actually end up doing something with the clients, you see that it helps them, and that's something that keeps me going every day. So that's it's a tough place, but the challenge is why we do it, right?
It sounds super exciting, actually. The last question is, if there's someone out there listening to us and really wants to join you and is kind of like courageous enough, but maybe a little bit hesitating about like if it's something he or she can do. Can you tell me what are the first steps or maybe tasks that this person is going to do? Like sort of onboarding process, let's say.
Right. So that will be working with me a lot on a kind of on a daily basis, and we would probably go through an exercise where we would be defining the process for sort of research, then contacting, then sort of a qualification of some sort of pool of leads that we would create together, and this would be something that I will be doing with them hands-on, because that's still part of, even though small, but it's still part of my kind of daily duty. So we would do that together, and it's not necessarily, even though it's a solitary job and role in terms of location, because we don't expect really to work in person from office together. It's not really in terms of support, so there will be obviously a lot of resources to lean on in terms of people and experience in the company. So that's something, that design of the process, and that's again something that I would highlight as an opportunity, is that you don't really need to just come into a team and say, okay, here's your quota. You have to make 50 phone calls a week and generate 10 leads, and here's what you're going to do, and you're going to be on this board with these other 20 people. But it's more about designing the process, looking at the things we do now, seeing if there are ways how we can do them better. I'm very receptive to feedback, so that's sort of what I want. I want someone who will help me design the rules of the engagement, rather than necessarily just go follow a script that we give them. So that would be the first part of that process, probably.
Mm-hmm. So Pavel, thank you very much for explaining and going into this sales opportunity. Where do the people that are interested, what should they like? Where can they reach you actually?
So they can find me easily on LinkedIn and on Facebook, through my full name. They can also, and I would recommend that they go take a look at our website, which is Keboola Asia, where they can learn a lot about the product and what we do, and contact us through there. So those are two sort of the easiest channels, but social networks obviously are quite easy.
Easiest. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there something you'd like to say in the end of this interview?
Well, all I can say is really that that I think that if I think about kind of filling this role and sort of the new colleague that we are looking for, I think this is a role I was looking for my entire life, really. When I was earlier in the stage in my sales career, and I think don't be afraid of challenges, and dare to do things differently, because that's always worked for me.
Perfect. Okay, Pavel, have a nice day. Thank you.